Boom. So now we're live. Now I have an echo again. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. At least I know what it is. All right. The reason I'm doing this over, you heard that echo there. As I go back and forth between Zoom and I go back and forth between my broadcast software, I have to change one setting, and I thought I had it, but I didn't, and so you heard it. Now, I did this whole thing a couple weeks ago, and this is what happens when you do live. This is what happens when you do anything. I play pickleball, or I go ahead and train my dog, and something goes wrong, and I laugh about it, and I learn, and I do it again. And if you've ever had, if you haven't done enough work that you've had to do something over, guaranteed you haven't done enough work, because as you do things, sometimes something goes wrong. One of the great things is by doing this over, it'll be better than the first one that I did, more concise. Other examples, people can ask questions, things like that. So be sure to throw a comment in. You can hear me, and in this case, you should not hear reverb, which is what we heard last time. And actually, see, there was an echo going on because I had my mic coming in from two different sources, and that was totally 100% my fault. And actually, and the worst thing was somebody even told me in one of the comments that they were hearing that. And I just thought it was something on their end. So I was totally wrong. I think it was Larry that put something up there. So this time it should be loud and clear. So here's the scenario. You have a client that you're doing a project for. This is going to be voiceover oriented more than audiobook oriented in this case. And what's happening is they were asked to put 4 seconds between each segment. So they were recording a little segment. And a lot of times this comes up when somebody's doing slideshow for e-learning. It comes up, or they're going to be taking it and they're going to be putting it together with one of their videos. And so what will happen there is that they just want a few seconds in between, and somebody who was newer to using Studio One, wasn't sure how to do that. So I'm going to show that and then take your questions and show some other things, because there's more than one way to do everything. And if you have my macro toolbars, you have one set of things. There's some other tools in Studio One, and you can do this all with the macros, without. It's easier if you have my tools, but it's certainly doable, multiple ways. So first thing, in this case, we're going to put 4 seconds of room tone. So how do you make, someone asked me a question, how do you make room tone? Well, in my case, this original line up here in blue at the top it's just a sample that I recorded just to show this off. And what I did was I left a few seconds in between each segment here so that I would visually have an indicator. And depending on how zoomed out you are, it's more obvious or less obvious. But in this case, I have just a couple seconds. I just left a space. The alternate scenario, if you're doing this up front, sometimes I've used a dog clicker, or for me, I use the finger snap method. I'm pretty good at snapping my fingers. Part of that is I was a drummer when I was younger. I made my living, and you were counting things off, and you'd count, and you'd be using finger snaps a lot. Not everybody's good at finger snaps, so if you're not, get yourself a dog clicker. Or leave space. You just need to somehow know that there's some time between segments. And you actually, there's some things that Lisa's done, my wife, where she will go ahead and she'll highlight something in between and just double click and then make a color out of it. And I actually have a macro that'll do that, little toolbar button that'll do that. I have to get that out there to everybody who has my toolbar, because it's pretty cool. And you could just highlight something and it'll turn it this color and all that kind of stuff. So you could use color coding if you want. In between segments, you would stop, highlight something, double click and right click, and then change its color to whatever you want. You could do that. So color works, finger snaps work, but you need something that allows you to know segment 1 is ended, here's segment 2, here's segment 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, etc. So I'm going to take those out, just show you some different things, and I have shortcuts for doing all these things. If you were doing it regularly, you build shortcuts for everything, okay? Because, hey, life's too short, so you need shortcuts, okay? But it's all good either way, no matter what you do, no matter how you do it. That it always, is good. But here's how I do it. I have what do they call this? A track. I have a track that ends up with this track. It will have some room tone on it. So I've already set up 4 seconds of room tone. And what did I do? I took some audio that was after RX. This is a track that had already gone through RX, and copied out. So you could copy that. And the easy way to copy it, by the way, highlight it, drag it down, hold down your Alt key, and you'll get a copy of this down here. So this is a copy of this. You press D a few times, and now you have some room tone, and you can bounce it. For those, you can bounce everything on the track. You can just make it one segment. So now all of a sudden what you see is this has been bounced into one segment, and then you can duplicate it, set it to how much time you need. There's some shortcuts. I'll have to show some shortcuts on another session for getting very specific. You can get 4 seconds, you can get 20 seconds, 30 seconds, down to the thousandths of a second. You can use the snap tools to do that. It makes it really easy to do that. And I've made up these pieces of room tone, and I'll show you mine if you show me yours type thing. Well, I'm going to get rid of that track for now. I've already done this in advance. This is something that you would do one time, and I'm going to zoom out and then let you see what I did here. So I have a 1 second. Let me zoom in so you can see that. There's a 1 second segment. I labeled it. I like to label things. So if you right click on this, you go up, you can actually double click right up here and you can label it and you can select a color. I selected white. All right. But you could select any color you want. What you want it to do is contrast with whatever track you're using so that you have this event a specific color. And when you do that, it just makes things easier. And by the way, if this isn't enough colors for you, you can go ahead and create custom colors. You can load other presets. There's a bunch of stuff you can do. And here's this fade to black. You could take this one, and I'm now going to set this to white. Okay. So you can see that there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. And I'm going to set that there and get that to be white. And then I'm also going to go ahead and get that color palette back, because that color palette's not the color palette I'm going to normally use. I'm going to use this one here. I'm going to just go to the default. All right, so that's back, and that's going to be, who knows? I don't remember what that track. That track's dark blue. Okay. Too many options. And here's the thing. I don't try to do all of them at once. Usually I'm doing one or the other. But what I've done is I have a segment here that's light. I have a segment that's dark. And here's the one that I'm going to use for today's example. I have 4 seconds of room tone here. So you can just find some spots. You can create room tone. You can find a half second and build it up into 400 minutes quite easily. I could create an hour of room tone in less than 30 seconds if I chose to. That's easy to do. But once you have it, you can right click on it and copy it. And then I would normally be using the After RX version of my audio. Now, not everybody has RX, so depending on what you're doing, I'm going to simply say, zoom out here. The original track is light blue. Let me make it a green. Original track is green for this demo. Then I exported it and turned it into, so now this audio is fully mastered, because on the export that happens automatically for me. And then I'm going to go in there and put in 4 second segments. And here's what I will do. If it was just me, I'm working on my own. If I don't have the finger snaps in there, I could have had finger snaps. I can show you that later. But this is going to be where the segment is. This is going to be where the segment is. And I like to go in. There's a shortcut for creating a split, and that's by double clicking whenever you see the plus sign. You can't do it in the bottom. You go to the top half of your audio, the smart cursor's on, double click, and I will, if I had 500 of these segments, I would have taken this After RX track, and where each one of the little 4 seconds are going to go into there, I would divide it up. So I might have 30 of them or 60 of them or 200 of them that are happening, and I can just see them visually. And what does that allow me to do? Well, first thing is I tend to take the tracks I'm not working with and make them small. The tracks I'm working with, I will tend to make them bigger. Now what happens is, as I scroll through this yellow track from side to side, I instantly see where those little breaks are, because that's where the event is. And let's simulate. I'll highlight all this. By the way, shift double click will select all events on the track. Pressing D will duplicate it. And so now I have this occurring. So now I have a bunch of segments here. So now, and that would have been the case if I had recorded a couple minutes of it. This is just a demo. It's not a real world project. I could have had 5 minutes or 50 minutes or something worth of these things that I had recorded. I'm just showing a short, quick one. Remember that I had copied this one right here, and I normally do it with the keyboard shortcuts, but I want you to see what I'm doing here. So if I zoom in, there's copy, zoom back out. So that puts it on the clipboard. Now, this is something that most people don't know on the PC or the Mac. Behind the scenes, there's something called a clipboard. And anytime you copy something, it's actually held in a little area that's known as the clipboard. And that can get quite sophisticated, but bottom line, when you copy something, that stays on that clipboard until you copy something else. Well, because of that, now all I have to do, I will highlight, I find my little break, and then I'm going to use my VO replace, and boom, it puts in that 4 seconds. I would scroll and find the next one. I will highlight that, VO replace. I will scroll, and what you can see is that now I can just simply go ahead and find all the little breaks that are in there and decide how precise I want to get with them and press one button, and I have that on a keyboard shortcut that I could use as well. And I would have a tendency to be zoomed out a little bit because that allows, now, you notice if I'm zoomed in too much like this, let me move this over here. I'll put it here. So if I'm zoomed in too close, then I can't be as precise with my selection. So a lot of times I will have this, somewhere right around there. But here's the great thing. I drag something. I'm going to drag it here. Well, let me drag back here. Drag right here. Oh, I didn't get enough on the left side. Oh, terrible me. Oh, bad day. Well, if you move your mouse cursor here, let me zoom in on that. So let me move mouse cursor. I have this, and now you can see. That gives me a little cursory thing there. That's a seam cursor. I can take it and now expand this out. I could take the right side, and as long as I get there and I see that icon, the mouse cursor, then I can readjust it. And I can adjust either end, which means I don't have to be hyper precise. And if I want to zoom in, I can. But remember, now that copied thing is still on my clipboard, and I can choose replace, and it'll put it in for me. So when I zoom out, you're going to see that I can just go, and now I have, I missed some. Look at this. I missed some. I'll go right here. Boom. This is how I would do it in the real world. I would be doing this, something like that. And then now as I zoom out, I've missed a couple. I'd go back and put them in. But now I've just added in 4 seconds in this example. It could have been 4 seconds. It could have been 2 seconds. It could have been 100 seconds. And I would normally just go in, zoom, make sure I'm precise. If I didn't get it right, I was too short, too wide, I'm going to do that, scroll over, and then do it again. And you'll see that that all works there. So that works really easily if you have my little macro, because you have the VO Jumpstart. That comes with that toolkit. And since people do a lot of that editing, that's easy. And there are other ways to do it as well. So I'll take all that out so you can see that. But hey, Rebecca, glad you're there. Thanks for saying hello. And it will make it easy to put that in. And if you don't do enough voiceover, then you probably won't have come up for that. If you haven't done e-learning, that hasn't come up. If you're in an audiobook, hey, this will come up sometimes at the beginning or the end. I do have some little segments set up. If you look right down here, let me do this, put this down here, we'll zoom in. What you can see is that I'm going to, let me turn on a little thing here, go all the way back to the beginning, and right there, look at that. That is 1 second of room tone. There's 2.5. Now, in the old days of audiobooks, we had to do something special. We had to put a half to 1 second at the beginning. We had to put 1 to 5 seconds at the end. There were some specifications there that are no longer the case. Now it's anything less than 5 seconds works. So you can use the same thing at the beginning and the end of your segment if you choose to, at the beginning and end of your chapter. A lot of times in the old days, because they were different and required to be different, I'd put 1 second at the beginning. I would copy that. And then once I've copied that, then I would go and highlight the beginning just before, make sure I don't clip off the beginning of the first word here. And so once I have that, and now I'm going to use a VO replace, and boom, and now I have a half second up front, and then I had a couple seconds at the end. And so I'd copy this, make sure this track is active, go to the end of that track, and then if I'm at the end, then I'll go ahead and I'm right there. Now what I like to do is just overlap a fraction for my end, And if I do that, now I can use VO replace and replace that. And now I have a couple seconds at the end. And I kind of like it because I had this little metaphor going. Sun rises in the morning at the beginning, and then at the end the sun sets. So I used a dark color at the end, a light color at the beginning. I do like to take and make my events colored because I have a chance to quickly glance and know, yes, I put in all the 4-second segments in between. I may even have, I'm famous for ugly colors. I guess ugly colors goes with an ugly guy. And then that way at a glance, I can tell that something has occurred. The colors are something that I just use all the time. And so if you do that, you can make your life easier. Note that every event can have its own color if you choose to. You can make custom colors, and I have to go over the color stuff sometime because it's a wacko how good it is. It's amazing. It's the graphics programs very often don't have as many options as we do, but I do use colors. It's very helpful. And so I'll look and see. I don't see anybody asking any question about any of that. So that just means, oh, this is so super clear. You cannot believe how easy it is. It actually is quite easy because conceptually, all we're doing is copy. Once we've done a copy, we're highlighting, replace, highlight, replace, highlight, replace, highlight, replace. All right, so now what I'm going to do is go ahead and take out some of this stuff and do it for those who don't have my toolbar, because you could do it. There's some really easy ways to do it, and there's a couple tricks and tips and things like that that I'll show you here and make things easy either way. The macros absolutely make life easier. There's a couple of them there that people just use extensively for doing both audiobooks and voiceovers and stuff, but I'll show you a couple other things. So let me undo some things. I'll take out those. All right, so now we're back and we don't have anything. So you can also, there's a feature here called Ripple Edit. So when Ripple Edit is, this is one of these things that people come from another DAW, they'll highlight something and they'll go ahead and they'll press delete and they're like, oh, it left a space. And then they have to grab it and then they try to bring this over and oh, it doesn't work exactly right. And then they go, this is terrible. And they think that well, it can be. Matter of fact, people will constantly ask, every time somebody asks, how do I select from, say, just I'm going to take this event all the way to the end, like I just did there. I selected all the events so that I can move them as a group. 98% of the time I know it's because they're not using Ripple Edit effectively, because if they were using Ripple Edit, they would not have that question come up. Because if I have Ripple Edit turned on, I'm going to go up here. Ripple Edit is right here. Let's zoom in on that guy. So you can see Ripple Edit. It's right there, right there. And when that is on, highlight anything I want. And then if I press delete, then what's going to happen is it not only takes it out, but it closes up the space. Now here's something that most people don't know. There's another command here called cursor follows edit position. What does that mean? When I turn that on and I click on this, it moves the cursor to the beginning of the event. Watch this. I'm going to click here. Cursor got moved to the beginning of an event. When doing editing, I sometimes will have that on. I don't usually have that on when I'm working in normal things because I don't want my cursor moving around unless I move it. But when I'm doing this type of thing, that's gold for that, and I'll show you why. Because now I can go over, remember, let me back up, refresh your memory. I actually copied something to the clipboard. We talked about our clipboard earlier. I'm going to take this 4 seconds. Let's change it to orange just so you see. So I'm going to copy this thing. Now it's going to become orange, and I'm going to do it the hard way, meaning I'm going to use the copy from the right click. Right? I don't usually do that. I usually use the keyboard shortcut. And so there's my copy. But that way you can see it visually. Now, let me go back to that little segment that I was working on here. I had actually taken out some audio. And which one did I do? I may have done an undo. If I did, let me, oh, yeah, there it is, right there. Okay. So if I, let me just do it over here. That way you can see it and there's no confusion. We're going to take this. I'm going to highlight across this section right here, and I'm going to delete that. I have Ripple Edit on. I've deleted it. As long as this is selected, now you see where my cursor is? Now I have this bizarre thing. Paste will automatically go to the spot, which is a combination of whatever is the active track and the cursor. So what does that mean? There's my cursor there. This track is active. And if I do it the old-fashioned way, I don't do this, by the way. I would be using keyboard shortcuts for this because almost every app has cut, copy, and paste. Their keyboard shortcuts. And when I do that, then my cursor does move. I'm going to be right here. Here's my cursor. And because I was zoomed in, let me not zoom in again, okay? I want to make sure you see this. Right here, I just move the cursor. Right here, I just move the cursor. Since I had deleted that, I'll do it again all in one. Now, when I say edit, paste, then what happens? Keyboard shortcut, Control V, Command V, it just puts it in, moves it over because Ripple Edit is turned on. So now I'll do the whole thing as one little segment. That's the result we're going to get. Here's the way I would do this. Highlight, delete, Ripple Edit is turned on, and because as long as this segment, you can see the cursor is there automatically, and I can simply Control V, Command V, paste it in, and it moved everything over. So what I would be doing is highlighting, pressing delete. My cursor is there. Control V, and it's moved everything over. And now I have 4 seconds between these segments. And it's even easier to just highlight and have a single action, which would be my macro. But if Ripple is turned on, these other tools are turned on, then I can press my delete key, get rid of that, Control V or Command V, highlight, move it in, and have it all do the same thing that you can do. And Studio One has other shortcuts. There's shortcuts for all sorts of things. I'm not going over most of those, but life is early. I want to learn how to do custom colors. Oh, you can't in version 4. That's something that came into version I think it's a version 6 feature. They've people complained about only having 64 colors and the colors that were there. So now you can have by default 256 colors is one of their palettes. They have a set of palettes for you that you can just grab it some if you don't like one, or you can make your own palette that has I think the max is, I think you can have 256 custom colors if you wanted, or you can customize any of the existing colors there. It's quite extensive. It's crazy. And they just allow us to do crazy amounts of stuff in terms of the colors. I don't remember what pH scale is. Oh, there's a color scale across there. You can see. Anyway, for most people, the defaults are fine. But if you want to build a whole custom thing and you can load presets, store presets, send them to somebody else, do a lot of stuff. And it does make color coding makes things easier, right? I have an uncle who's colorblind, and even colorblind, they can do different grayscales, and that's the beautiful thing here now. I mean, one of the palette options is a grayscale one. What do they call it? Fade to black. And now I have the ability to set things, and there you can even do inverse colors. So if you pick certain things, it's going to make the waveform the opposite. So now we have white against black, black against white, etc. That's pretty cool. Just tons and tons and tons of good stuff. All right, let me go back to the default here. All right. We'll make that red. Nah, I don't like that red. Too much, too much. There we go. We're a blue, we're a blue, we're a blue. All right. So I hope that helps. Hope that helps. If you're in version 5, they may have, I think version 6 is where the colors, in fact, I'm sure, version 6 where the color palette stuff came in, and now you just have a crazy number of colors and unlimited because you can create palettes. So if 256 colors isn't enough for what you're doing, yeah, you can go crazy with that. All right, so let me check here and see if there's anything else question-wise or comment-wise that I can help with. But Studio One makes it easy to get different things done, okay? And that's a great thing because right-click is your friend for all sorts of things. And I'm going to do it the easy button way, which is highlight. I will use this one I have assigned to a keyboard shortcut, and I would have used that. But that's the easy way to get a few seconds in between. By the way, if you ever wanted to use, well, there's other ways. I'll have to show insert time and delete time another time, another session, because I can just show 400. There's just too many ways. And people go, well, which way should you use it? And it's like, well, kind of depends on what you're doing. If I'm going to Costco, I'm going to Trader Joe's, I'm going to the theater, I'm going to my friend's house. Which direction should I go? Well, it depends on what time of day. I live here in LA. There's traffic. So if I'm going to Costco at one time, I might go one direction. If I'm going to Trader Joe's at certain times, I might pick a different route. If there's a traffic accident, I'll go a different route. So there's more than one way to do almost everything, and that allows you to get your job done cleaner and faster. If you only know one way to go to a certain location and there's an accident or a road closure for construction, then you're stuck. Now that we all have a GPS on our phone, we just go, yeah, route me around it, I don't care. And it's easy and simple. What's the best way? Well, it depends on what you're doing, what else you might be going to, what time of the day, what else is going on. There's all those factors when you drive someplace. It's the same exact thing. Most of the time, people are going to use these options that we have in the macro toolbars. But if they don't have that, then there are ways to do almost all this stuff manually. When I started, this replace was really kind of a nightmare. It wasn't easily available without a macro. Today it is. And I have new macros that do other things like, hey, this goes to the beginning, or like when this is off, I found people want to go to the end of an event, the beginning of an event, as well as the beginning of the track, the end of the track. So now these things go to the beginning of the end, or they'll go to the beginning and the end of individual events. Whatever event is highlighted, then it'll go beginning and there. All right. So hope that helps some people. Hope that makes it clear. I can't remember who originally wanted this, but I do have a version out there that I'm taking down because I had so much reverb in it. It was awful. I listened back to it, and I'm surprised anybody watched it after the fact, because while I was talking, you had two of me. One of me is hard for most people to put up with, and two, ain't going to happen. So if you don't have Studio One Jumpstart, get it. There's a version 2 of it. If you already had the first version, it's a new version for 6. It has upgraded templates, upgraded macro toolbars. I keep upgrading stuff, and I have a couple other free things that are going to come out for people who have the course to make the colors easier when they want to colorize events or tracks or things. There's a lot of good stuff happening, so I'm excited about that. Be sure to watch the VO Tech Simplified on Tuesdays, and the Heller Barnes Ask Us Anything. Well, that one's kind of more audiobook focused, but you can ask a tech question there. If you have a question about Studio One or RX or a lot of other things, check out that VO Tech Simplified on Tuesdays. Definitely, I'm happy to answer questions about Studio One as well there. But a lot of places and a lot of shows happening. Be sure to subscribe. Uh, it's great if you watch this on YouTube, make comments there too. That really helps the channel. And I'm really pushing the YouTube stuff because, yes, I do these live on Facebook. That works super well. Now I'm simulcasting them on both. But when you go back to the 6 months from now and you kind of think, hey, I know there was one on a certain subject, they are hard to find on Facebook, and they're easy to find in the live section of YouTube. So hope you enjoy those there. I got to go here for the day unless I see another comment. And if there's a comment where somebody needs some assistance, then I'm happy to do that. But I don't see any other comments there. So hope you have a fantastic one. And I will see you all on the wires. See you in the groups. Join us. Talk to you later. Bye.